My name is Mason White, and I'm a native Californian from sunny San Diego. The soft breezes from the Pacific Ocean and sun-drenched beaches have been an integral part of my life since birth. For many, this is a paradise, a place for carefree relaxation and leisurely pastimes, but not for me. From an early age, a relentless fire of adventure, discovery, and pushing the boundaries of what's possible burned within me, while my peers frolicked in the coastal waves and lounged on the hot sand. I yearned to delve into the depths of impassable canyons, ascend breathtaking peaks in national parks, or explore mysterious caves somewhere in the depths of the desert. I remember at the age of 10. I ran away from home in the middle of the night with the sole purpose of reaching a mountain lake several miles from the city and witnessing the sunrise there in complete solitude. My worried parents found me only in the evening, covered in mud and half asleep, but with a face shining with happiness. That night, I first encountered the wild, untouched nature and realized, the world is much more beautiful and amazing when you explore all its nooks and crannies and secrets. Since then, my childhood has turned into an endless series of travels and expeditions. Not a single weekend passed without spending the night under the starry sky somewhere in the mountains or exploring another exotic ecosystem. Hidden streams and waterfalls, intricate rock paintings by Native Americans, evergreen sequoia forests, I absorbed every bit of the natural beauty surrounding me. In school, I was invariably a mystery and an oddity to my classmates. While they were enamored with Hollywood stars and trendy gadgets, I was engrossed in tattered volumes of Jack London and earnestly studied survival in extreme conditions. Instead of parties and dates, I spent nights in a sleeping bag in the mountains or by a campfire on the stream bank, gazing at the star-studded sky. My parents just indulgently shook their heads, observing my whims. My father, the owner of a small auto repair shop, was a descendant of Americans whose roots traced back to the Wild West of the first settlers. My mother, a native of Japan, had worked as a nurse at the San Diego Veterans Hospital all her life. Despite their seemingly opposite characters, they were united by hard work and a desire to give me a worthy upbringing and education. Yet, despite their efforts to introduce me to the comforts of civilized life, the primitive feeling of a close connection with the surrounding nature never faded away in me. Perhaps it came from the ancient blood coursing through me, the same blood that once led my ancestors across endless prairies in search of new lands and a free life. Years of schooling flew by in a whirlwind of hikes, climbs, and river rafting trips. In the upper grades, close friends joined me, sharing my passion. We were united by a common idea, to discover all the new facets of the surrounding world through the prism of its pristine purity and harmony. Casting aside the temptations of the city, we found true happiness in the embrace of virgin forests, on the shores of crystal-clear lakes, and in the shadow of mighty mountain peaks. Upon graduation from high school, most of my friends went off to prestigious universities, but not me. Nature was the highest science for me, with all its wonders and mysteries. I landed a job at the largest canyoneering company in San Diego, which organized expeditions to the most remote and exotic canyons in the region. For me, there was no more mesmerizing activity than descending daily to the bottom of narrow winding chasms deep underground, squeezing through rocky crevices, and overcoming swift underground streams. Almost every new expedition was a breakthrough into an unexplored world, a world of millennia-old layers of mountain rocks, blind crustaceans inhabiting underground lakes, and eternal darkness pierced only by the gleams of flashlights and the reflections of sunlight from rare shafts and pits. In my free time, I independently explored the canyons of Utah, Arizona, and New Mexico. As I navigated the intricate mazes of ravines and roaring mountain streams, I ventured further away from civilization, into places where no human foot had yet tread. There, one-on-one with the harsh, primordial wilderness, I found my calling. Over time, my wanderings through remote ravines and canyons evolved into something more than just dangerous adventures. I discovered the astonishing world of flora flourishing in these remote corners of the wild. Everywhere I wandered, from deep shadowy crevices to sunlit cliffs high above, I was drawn to the most diverse and whimsical plants. I suppose my interest in botany was predetermined from birth. My family has been comprised of biologists and naturalists for generations, endlessly fascinated by the study of living organisms. As a child, I spent long hours in the family library, poring over ancient herbariums and leather-bound botanical volumes. My father, a passionate gardener, generously shared his knowledge of the most exotic and remarkable plant species from around the world. However, in those years, all this knowledge remained for me mere abstract theory. It wasn't until I encountered real, exotic flora during my forays into nature that I fully appreciated the grandeur and diversity of the plant world. Each new expedition brought new discoveries. I found tiny edible berries, which had been a staple food for Native American tribes since ancient times. I studied gigantic 800-year-old sequoias, hollows big enough to fit an entire cabin. I stumbled upon peculiar cacti of exotic shapes, as if from other worlds. Everywhere, I was surrounded by the fantastic flowers of dazzling hues, mosses, and lichens. Fearlessly mastering the most inhospitable rocks and cliffs, it seemed that here, in these secluded corners untouched by civilization, plants acquired their own, mysterious voice. They floated in the wind streams, turning their inflorescences towards the sun, emitting wonderful aromas after rain, and unfolding their marvelous crowns only at night. Each of them carried within itself a unique genetic code, the result of millions of years of evolution and adaptation to the most extreme conditions. I was enchanted by this botanical diversity. Returning from my trips, I carefully dried samples of herbs, flowers, and seeds, assembling them into my own herbarium. At home, poring over scientific works and folios in ancient languages, I compared my findings with descriptions, searching for mentions of their exotic names and features. Soon, my home turned into a veritable botanical laboratory, and all my spare time was devoted to studying the smallest details of plant structure and their evolution. I immersed myself in biographies of great naturalists like Charles Darwin or Alexander von Humboldt. Endlessly inspired by their dedication to science and quest for knowledge, at some point, the study of the plant world became not just a hobby for me, but a true obsession, a kind of religion. Every new expedition into the wilderness was perceived as a pilgrimage to natural sanctuaries, as an opportunity to connect with the primal wisdom of life itself. Gradually, the scope of my interests expanded. Botany was supplemented with paleontology and geology, sciences explaining how modern species evolved and how mountain rocks were formed, preserving the amazing fossils of ancient creatures. Physiology and cytology provided an understanding of the most subtle processes occurring at the cellular level, and without ecology, it was simply impossible to grasp the grand picture of the intricate interrelationships of the realms of living nature. With each passing year, with each discovery and new handful of knowledge, the world only seemed to become more beautiful and multifaceted. I sought to comprehend every fragment of this wonderful diversity of forms. Moving from simple bacteria and slime molds to gigantic tree-like ferns, from marine algae to unseen floral exotics of distant subtropics, and only one thing overshadowed my studies. Gradually, as I increasingly observed traces of human activity even in the most remote paradisiacal corners, I realized that this wild, pristine beauty could forever disappear under the pressure of progress and greed. Human dreams of prosperity and wealth threatened to destroy the very natural paradise to which I was so infinitely attached. Therefore, over the years, I became more and more involved in conservation movements and projects to protect vulnerable biological communities and species. By my own example, I sought to inspire as many people as possible to appreciate and cherish the gifts of the earth, our common precious home. After all, deprived of the opportunity to connect with the pristine beauty of untouched nature, humanity would ultimately lose a piece of that connection that once united it with the essence of life. With each passing year, my passion for studying the plant and animal world burned brighter. Immersing myself in the natural sciences, I absorbed knowledge from various sources, from classical fundamental works to the latest scientific articles and monographs. However, over time, I began to realize that independent, albeit extensive knowledge might not be enough. Exploring another mountain canyon near Los Angeles, I happened to stumble upon a group of biology students from the University of California. Their professor, noticing my childlike enthusiasm for every fascinating creature or plant found in the crevices, suggested considering continuing my education at the biology faculty. "You're a true naturalist," he remarked with a smile. "The university will provide you with the knowledge base necessary for serious research." Honestly, in my youth, I never even thought about formal higher education. School seemed to me simply a boring obligation, detached from reality. I found much greater joy in daily excursions into the bosom of nature, where life itself was my inspiring teacher. However, the professor's words resonated deeply within me. I recalled evenings spent reading ancient tomes in my parents' home library, their proud faces as they warmly showed me diplomas and internships from leading scientific laboratories around the world. Growing older, I realized that possessing an academic background would not only expand my opportunities in the field of scientific research but also express gratitude to my family of true intellectuals whose genes generously endowed me with a love of knowledge. I remember when I voiced my decision to my parents to attend university, they couldn't hold back tears of joy. "It's never too late to get a higher education," exclaimed my father, patting me on the back. My mother, in her characteristic manner, simply hugged me silently and gratefully nodded to the heavens. And so, at 20-something years old, I found myself back in the student seat, only this time lecture halls and laboratories became a second home for me. Already a formed enthusiast naturalist, I immersed myself in studies with incredible zeal. It seemed that finally, I was acquiring the tools that opened up horizons of knowledge I had never dared to dream of before. Each lecture on biochemistry, molecular biology, genetics, and other fundamental disciplines became a revelation, stimulating my imagination and inspiring me to move further and further. I absorbed the most complex concepts about protein and nucleic acid structure, cellular metabolic processes, the origin and evolution of species. And with each new piece of knowledge, the mysterious natural diversity unfolded before me in an entirely new, deeper, and more awe-inspiring light. I was particularly drawn to courses in botany and plant physiology, where I could apply all my accumulated experience of natural observations. I remember how Professor Jill Hayes, a world-renowned researcher of plant fossilization processes, highly appreciated a sample of horsetail that I brought her from my travels in Antelope Canyon, Arizona, and after a presentation on the mysteries of angiosperm evolution, even the dean of the faculty asked me to share my impressions of visiting the grove of giant sequoias in the national park in Northern California. Studying was a real challenge, but it brought me indescribable bliss. Every laboratory experiment, every microscopic detail of biological structure or process revealed to me a whole universe of living nature in all its beauty and mesmerizing complexity. My classmates, initially skeptical of the unconventional senior student, gradually grew more respectful towards me, and when I was elected president of the Naturalist Student Society in my senior years, I was convinced, science and knowledge have no age limits, for true passion for learning knows no boundaries. The defense of my thesis on microflora of desert canyons and its role in the formation of underground rivers was the crown of all my student years. Then, speaking before famous professors and scientists from all over the country, I finally felt like a true scientist, a person capable of contributing to the treasury of world knowledge. But even more than the title of biologist, the proud look of my parents sitting in the front row of the auditorium became a reward for me. At that moment, I realized that my path was not only a way to fulfill my own aspirations as a naturalist but also a worthy continuation of my family's legacy of explorers and pioneers in the world of living nature. Everything was going splendidly. Studying at the biology faculty captivated me more and more. I was in love with science and uncovering new secrets of nature. However, one day during a break, I noticed my friend Ryan with a group of friends gathered in the school restroom. At first, I didn't pay it much attention, but when I caught a whiff of a fragrant smoke, I couldn't help but be wary. Approaching closer, I was surprised to see that they were smoking some plant, the dried leaves of which smoldered in a joint. "Hey, Mason," the botanical researcher, "come here. Try this curiosity." Ryan smirked, handing me the joint. At that moment, my curiosity overcame all other feelings. Like a naturalist from abroad, I had spent my whole life studying new and mysterious plants, experimenting with their properties and their impact on the body. And now, before me emerged an entirely unknown culture. Without hesitation, I took a drag, unsuspecting of anything. The bitter smoke scorched my lungs, but almost immediately strange, kaleidoscopic images began to flash in my mind, and the reality around me started to blur and lose its clear outlines. It was as if I had suddenly been transported into a strange dream or another reality. After just a few minutes, my determination to explore all the secrets of this mysterious plant completely consumed me. Ryan and his friends just chuckled, watching my first journey. And I couldn't gather my thoughts, everything around me either blurred or gained amazing clarity and detail. After some time, the break ended, but since then, the plant, which, as I later found out, was none other than marijuana, firmly occupied my thoughts. I simply couldn't rid myself of the irresistible desire to understand its deep secrets again, to study its effects on the body down to the smallest nuances. Unfortunately, my obsession with this narcotic plant eventually spiraled out of control. Skipping classes. I was fully immersed in its study, experimenting with various consumption methods, preparing my own tinctures and extracts. I stopped seeing friends, abandoned hikes and explorations. Only one, science, interested me. It's no wonder that soon my studies finally went downhill. Lectures seemed dull to me, and laboratory work literally made me nauseous. More and more, I plunged into the abyss of narcotic stupor, breaking once strong bonds with loved ones, squandering my talents and strengths aimlessly. My parents, scientists to the core, were distraught when they learned of my downfall. They were so proud of me, so believed in my love for biology. And in one moment, I shattered all their hopes. All their expectations that I would become a worthy successor to their scientific path. I fell low at that time, almost becoming a burden to society. I drank heavily and acted out, falling in with antisocial elements. There were several serious criminal incidents, after which I found myself behind bars. And only after languishing a couple of months locked up in a dismal cell, did I finally sober up. At the cost of immense efforts and inner struggle, I managed to regain my humanity, rid myself of the destructive addiction. To this day, I am grateful to my close ones, who did not turn away from me in that dark time and were able to offer support. It was they who supported my desire to return to a decent life and once again find the path to fulfilling the cherished dream of becoming a biologist. Truth be told, restoring trust with the educational institution and getting enrolled in the program again proved to be no easy task. But I endured this trial, proving to everyone my complete rehabilitation. Since then, I have firmly embarked on the true path of knowledge and enjoyment of the wonders of life, rather than its suicidal surrogates. And these bitter lessons helped me cultivate unwavering resilience and fidelity to principles within myself. For only by rejecting temptations capable of destroying the mind and soul does a person gain the opportunity to fully comprehend the magnificence of the surrounding creation. Drugs became my way of coping with problems and stress. My studies suffered, and I lost interest in what had once been my passion. My parents were horrified when they learned the truth. Themselves scientists, they couldn't believe their son had fallen into this trap. They tried to help me, but the more they tried, the deeper I sank into this world. Everything crashed down on me when the university called my parents. I was caught red-handed, in the bathroom, with drugs. My life crumbled before my eyes. I was expelled for poor performance, and I lost everything I had dreamed of, and then it was time to leave. I had nothing left to lose. I packed my things and went home. Dreams of a scientific career collapsed, replaced by disappointment and bitterness. I realized I needed to start over, but for now, I just needed to recover from this blow and find my way forward. Thus, I once again took up the cause of a biologist. I returned to my studies, dedicating myself to the study of the science that had always been my calling. Every day I learned something new, striving to become better in my field. Moreover, I continued to see a psychologist who helped me understand myself, my feelings, and thoughts. He taught me how to cope with difficulties, how to find strength within myself, and how to move forward even in the most difficult moments. I realized that I am needed in this world. I realized that my life has meaning and that I can make a contribution to improving this world. I decided to use my knowledge and skills to help others and make this world a better place. My parents looked at me with pride. They saw how I overcame difficulties, how I grew and developed. And I decided that I would do everything possible to justify their pride. I will try to give them back everything they did for me and make them proud of me every day. Thus, I will continue to move forward, believing that the future can be bright, despite all the difficulties and challenges. I will fight for my dreams, for my family, and for this world, because I know that each of us can make it better.